Hey everyone, welcome back to the TENm podcast. Give me 10 minutes and I'll give you something to think about. I'm RJ, and the 10 today is about something that can be really tough to navigate: family ties. Specifically, the question of whether to cut ties with family or not. The other day, I was watching a TV show and the host was discussing a topic that really caught my attention. The conversation was related to, well, kind of related to, cutting ties with family. The host said something along the lines of, "I don't believe you can ever cut ties with your family, no matter how bad the situation is, because family is everything. And no matter what hurt you may have between you and your family, at the end of the day, you will come back to them." Hearing this host's opinion kind of stung me a little bit, because I personally don't have a relationship with my dad. I haven't had a relationship with my dad since I was almost 20. And honestly, I have no regrets about that. But it got me thinking, is this really the case? Is it truly impossible or even wrong to cut ties with family, no matter their circumstances? Admittedly, I have a biased opinion, but I had to step outside of myself for a moment because it really had me think. I wanted to share a bit of my own story here. Like I mentioned, I don't have a relationship with my dad. It's been that way since I was almost 20 years old. There were things that happened, things that I won't go into detail about right now, that led me to make the decision to distance myself. And I've never regretted that decision. It was the right choice for me and for my own well being. But hearing the host's opinion made me reflect on this idea that family is everything, and that no matter what, you should stick by them. It made me wonder about how many people out there might be struggling with this very question. How many people might feel guilty or conflicted about the idea of cutting ties with a family member, even if that relationship is toxic or harmful? Let's explore this a little further. There's definitely a cultural and societal pressure to maintain family connections at all costs. I know this firsthand from growing up in a Filipino family. We often hear phrases like, "blood is thicker than water," or "family is forever." And for many, family can be a source of unconditional love, support, and connection. But what happens when that's not the case? What happens when staying connected to family means enduring pain, trauma, or even abuse? For some, cutting ties might be the healthiest option. It might be the only way to protect their mental health or to break free from a cycle of dysfunction. On the other hand, there are those who believe that no matter how difficult the relationship, family ties should never be severed. They might argue that with time, understanding, and forgiveness, even the most strained relationships can be healed. Here's an example. I recently watched an interview of a young Filipina actress who talked about how her father was abusive, her mother had bipolar depression and was also abusive, and a brother who was also bipolar and unfortunately also sexually abused her. She talked about all the hardships that she had with her family, but in the end, she was able to forgive and reestablish her relationships with them. This takes an unbelievable amount of courage and a lot of strength to work through all the trauma that she suffered. Family relationships are incredibly complex. They're often a mix of love, obligation, expectation, and shared history. This complexity can make the decision to cut ties with a family member incredibly difficult. It's not something to be taken lightly, and it's certainly not a one size fits all situation. For example, some people might feel a sense of duty to their family, even if the relationship is harmful. They might worry about the fallout, how it will affect other family members, or how they will be judged by others. There's also a fear of regret, wondering if down the line they'll wish they had made a different choice. Ultimately, the decision to cut ties with a family member is deeply personal. It's not something anyone else can decide for you, and it's important to weigh the pros and cons carefully. For some, staying connected might be worth the effort and the pain. For others, letting go might be the only way to truly heal and move forward. I want to pose this question to you all. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to consider cutting ties with a family member? How did you make that decision and what was the outcome? Or if you're currently facing this dilemma, what factors are you weighing as you decide what to do? Remember, it is okay to prioritize your own well being. It's okay to set boundaries, even with family. And if that means cutting ties, for me, that's a valid choice. But it's also okay to try to mend relationships if you feel that that's the right path for you. There's no right or wrong answer here, just what's right for you. As we wrap up, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on your own family relationships. Are there any that need healing? Are there boundaries you need to set? Or are there ties you might need to consider letting go of? Whatever the case may be, know that you have the right to make the decision that's best for you. Family ties are definitely complicated, and there's no easy answer when it comes to whether to cut or not to cut. But by reflecting on your own experiences and feelings, you can make a choice that honors your well being and your truth. Thank you for spending these 10 minutes with me on the TENm podcast. I'm RJ, and I hope today's episode gave you something to think about. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring life's big questions, one step at a time. Take care and keep growing.